And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of As Good as It Gets. I'm Rickey Hampton with my great friend and brother, former Nets shooting guard Derrick Gervin, coming to you on a Thursday evening. Derrick, we finally got some basketball, man. I thought they forgot that they.
Well,
I
it's
thought
sad
they
that we
forgot
have.
they had a final series to play. It's been so
I,
long.
I, I guess they following football. They copying football now, man. You play the last games, and then you got to wait 2 weeks to get the finals. So here we go.
Well, we're finally here, and that's good, and I'm excited for that. But really, I think it's been maybe 10 days since the Celtics played. Uh,
Yes,
what is that going to impact the way this game goes tonight?
I think it's going to impact them at least in the first half. Because first of all, not only that, but Porzingis has also been out. So one of the positives is it gives Porzingis a chance to get healthy, and he's back tonight. But yeah, I think they're going to get off to a slow start. Man, I told you before, if you take off like 3 days, you can kind of get out of condition. And I know they've been practicing and all that, but you cannot emulate a game. You cannot simulate a game when you're just practicing. So, yeah, I think they're going to get off to a slow start, and then you'll see them pick it up as the second half starts, as they start getting in rhythm.
Help me understand that, and our viewers understand that. And first of all, and next, welcome to all our viewers out there around the country tuning in to As Good as It Gets. Because I hear guys say the speed of the game. I mean, can you help us understand what that really means? Because a lot of us played, well, it's not high school, but college basketball and even high level amateur basketball. And then you talk about the speed of an NBA game. And even when the NBA guys take a few days off, it's an adjustment. What does that really mean?
It can be devastating, Ricky. I'll kind of explain it like this. Like when you start talking about the altitude in Denver, and you hear people talk about all the time how they're 5,280 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
So it causes a lot of players to get winded, early, a lot earlier than you normally would. And I was surprised that Minnesota was able to handle that so well, beat the champions 3 times in Denver. But yeah, it's the same thing when you've been off for a period of time, like 9 to 10 games of days. The first thing that goes is your wind. And that affects your timing. So when you're short-winded, you watch tonight, Jason Tatum and those guys, they're gonna be huffing and puffing early in the game. Missoula's gonna have to either wait for the TV timeout or call a timeout earlier. You'll be able to see the difference. Dallas will look more in rhythm at the beginning because they haven't been off as long. And then you'll see it'll be an adjustment for Boston because they haven't been playing, running up and down that floor. It's like running a mile. You go out, you're running a mile every day, and then you take off 2 weeks. When you come back, you got to work your way back up. You got to work your way back up. And it's the same in basketball. It usually takes about 3 days to get out of top condition in basketball. I'm talking the NBA. And so these guys have been off 10 days. So, yes, it's going to be an adjustment. You can't simulate that in practice. You can practice, but it's not the same as game reps. And once the game starts, you'll see Boston will be a little sluggish, I believe, at first, and then they'll pick it up as the game moves on.
Hey, before we break down the preview the finals that tips off in about an hour and a half, I do want to kind of look back at the conference finals and just get your final thoughts on that. Because you mentioned Minnesota going to Denver and winning 3 times. Of course, at the very beginning, you had concerns about Denver, even though they were the defending champions. What happened to Minnesota after that? And in Denver, you were not surprised to see them go down.
I was not surprised. I was sad about it. But, yeah, I had talked about it earlier. This was the only team that had me nervous was Minnesota. I thought they matched up really well. And so I was a little nervous. But I honestly think Ricky winning that series and winning those 3 games in Denver took everything out of Minnesota. If you remember early in the next series against Dallas, Anthony Edwards talked about fatigue after the first game. And from that point on, I was like, yeah, you could tell he's a young guy. He's 22. Because you would never hear any veterans even put that out there in the public. And the teammates also heard that. And when you start talking about fatigue, that comes from inexperience. And I just think mentally they weren't able to recoup from that Denver series. They looked a little slow. Karl Anthony Towns was not the same guy he was in the Denver series. Right. If you just watch the way they played, they just didn't look like the aggressive team defensively that they were in the series against Denver, and they didn't look the same offensively and just couldn't suck it up. And if you look at every game, Anthony Edwards looked really fatigued. And I think that Denver series just took everything out of them. I think Dallas was the better team, but I expected it to be way more competitive than it was. And I just think that Denver series just took everything out of these guys. But it was a lesson learned, and it's something that they'll have to look forward to for next year. They learned a lesson today, and I think they'll regroup next season.
Think about Denver. Dallas was the 5th seed in the West. That was probably the most competitive conference I've seen in a while.
In a long time, Ricky. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because even though they're 5 seed, nobody's really shocked that they're in the finals, even though they were a 5 seed. Think about in the East, Orlando's a 5 seed. Ain't nobody think that they had a chance to get there.
The difference, though, Ricky, with them being a 5 seed as opposed to Orlando, was Dallas was lower than that before they made that trade.
Yeah.
They weren't even up. They moved up to the 5th seed. And that was after they started incorporating Derrick Jones more. And then they went and made the big blockbuster moves, I call them, even though they weren't superstars, P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford. I think once they did that, they became one of the top teams in the conference. And I don't think people were sleeping on them. I think what we're seeing right now is really no surprise. You have a happy Kyrie Irving, the happiest as he seems to have been in the last several years. And then you have Luka Doncic, who's continuing to get more experience, who's continuing to ascend up the rankings. And what we're seeing right now is no surprise to me. They've got a great team. And then to top it off, on your bench, you've got a proven champion, one of the best point guards in the history of the NBA that ever played the game, Jason Kidd. And it seems to be working. All the guys have bought in, and it just seems to be a match made in heaven right now.
Yeah. You mentioned Gafford and P.J. Washington. They were just languishing. Gafford was in D.C. with the Wizards, and Washington was in Charlotte. And everyday fans weren't really paying attention to them because their teams were so bad. But
Ricky,
that was the astute move by the Dallas Mavericks.
The only thing we were hearing about P.J. Washington this year had to do with his personal life.
Right.
Off the floor. A situation that I won't even talk about. It was something but during the season, if you remember last year in Charlotte, P.J. Washington had a situation with a female off the floor. Not a bad way of fighting or anything, but I'll say it had something to do with a baby. Yeah. And so that's all people were talking about last season when he was in Charlotte. I think that's part of the reason Charlotte wanted to let him go, to kind of get that out of the way so they didn't have to be dealing with players being asked about his off-the-court situation. And then, lo and behold, look where it happens. He moves to a better situation, and he gets to a team, and every player has bought in. And the reason I say that, how important that is, Ricky, you remember all these years leading up to this season, Tim Hardaway Jr. has been a very important part of that lineup. And you don't even hardly see him play now unless they're up by 20 points. Right. So that means he bought in. You haven't been hearing him making headlines, talking negativity, bringing that stuff, nasty stuff into the locker room. Josh Green wasn't playing a lot last year, and Jaden Hardy. They waited till they got their opportunities. Now they've got their opportunities. They're seizing the moment, And those moments have sent Josh Powell and Maxie Kleber to the bench. But when they get called on, they're still ready. So everything's working in their favor right now.
Yeah. And over in the East, Boston and I thought Indy was going to give them a little more trouble than what they did. Of course, Indy had some injuries. Of course, Boston didn't have Porzingis. But let's just look back at that series right quick.
Well, I wanted a really good series because, as you know, Rick Carlisle was my assistant coach with the Nets, and I even went to watch him play here when they played the Spurs. I was sad to see when Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. So to me, that kind of really, right from the start, that put them definitely behind a team like Boston. And I think it would have been a more competitive series if they not for the injuries. But then again, I still thought Boston was the best team in the East. They've been the best team all year in the East. And it was just sad to see Indiana it be kind of shorthanded. But as we both know, hey, only one injury from what could be a devastating loss. And that's what happened. I still think Boston was the best team, but when you take off the guy that led the league in assists this year, Tyrese Halliburton, a guy who's also going to be on the Olympic team, that hurts you a lot. And I think that was the biggest thing mentally. That made everybody have to play a different role. T.J. McConnell and all those guys, they played well. Nembhard, but on the other side, Ricky, you look at it, it gave guys a chance to get a name, like Andrew Nembhard. T.J. McConnell's been around a long time, but it gave him an opportunity, and then Aaron Nesmith. So they lost the series, but it gave some other guys a chance to shine, and I was happy to see that part.
Yeah. Hey, but we got some coaching news going on. The Lakers are apparently hot to hire UConn's Dan Hurley. Of course, the Huskies have won back-to-back NCAA titles, but Derrick, most of the time when these college coaches make that jump to the NBA, it usually doesn't work out. And man, this guy got to go up here, and he's got LeBron James. He's got to coach up Anthony Davis. What are your thoughts about the possibility of Hurley becoming coach, and why is it so tough for college coaches to succeed in the NBA?
Well, let me say why it's hard. Let me take that part first. It's hard because, these NBA players are making a lot of money. And when you got guys making $50 million, it's hard to listen to a guy that you really didn't even pay attention to when they were in college. These guys aren't watching a whole lot of basketball in college. Of course, LeBron was watching, but why was he watching? Because his son Bronny was playing.
Right.
So other than that, he might not watch college all season.
Right.
And then when you bring in these coaches, man, some of them come in trying to prove themselves the wrong way. It's a certain way you have to deal with these players. Your disposition has to be, I'll say, on point is words they use today. You cannot come in trying to take over. And the reason I say I think it'll work with Danny Hurley is because if you look at it, it worked with Larry Brown. Everybody knew who Larry Brown was. Of course, we know he had ABA experience and he had NBA experience. But in this case, the reason I think it could work is because I believe LeBron is a guy that studies this game. And me being playing in the New Jersey area, Ricky, I know what a lot of people don't know as far as the history of the Hurley family. Because you got his dad is a legend in the New Jersey area. You got Aunt Bobby, what's the dad's name? Oh, man, that's bad. I can't even think of the name right now.
Bobby.
He's a legend. Say it again.
You're talking about Bobby?
Yeah, Hurley? No, Bobby's the brother. You got Bobby and Danny. The dad is a legend.
Yeah. High school coach, right?
Yes. So a lot of the guys know him. Say guys like Carmelo and all those guys that went to like Oak Hill and those kind of schools. They know about the dad. And I'm so sorry, I can't think of the name right now. That kills me. But
he's Bob Hurley.
Bob Hurley, yeah, there you go, Bob Hurley Sr. So, Ricky,
Technically, Robert Hurley. Yeah.
they have pedigree. They've been there. You know, they haven't been in the pros, but as you know, Bobby played in the pros. Bobby was a Sacramento King. So I just believe in the family. I think there's certain families that I could trust in this game. And I just think that the guy has the right disposition. We saw what he did with Connecticut, back-to-back champions. It's hard to remember the last time that's happened. And I just think he's a guy that will be willing to make the adjustment. The only question I have about the situation is, would the Lakers give him the power that he would need when you're dealing with a guy like LeBron and you're dealing with a guy with Anthony Davis? I don't think Darvin Ham had that freedom. And as we know, it caused friction in the locker room. Guys say they didn't know what they were doing from one play to the next. And they had the Austin Reeves situation where they benched him, and then he went back into the lineup. So it was a lot of things that were negatives that were affecting Darvin Ham. If they give Danny Hurley, the opportunity I think they're going to give him, and they break the bank for this man, I think the sky's the limit for him. And I think LeBron and AD would go do what's necessary to make the team better. Ricky, LeBron only has a year or two left.
Right.
And I've heard people talking about Bronny and all that stuff, but they wouldn't be bringing Danny Hurley in. That has nothing to do with Bronny James. That has everything to do with LeBron wants to go out as a winner, and they want to give Anthony Davis an opportunity to get another ring other than the bubble championship. And I think if they get this man the power that he deserves, it'll work very well.
Yeah. Hey, man, Bob Hurley won 26 New Jersey state championships in 39 years.
He's a real coach.
St. Anthony's in New Jersey.
He's really good. I mean, hey, Ricky, sometimes I don't think you have to play in the NBA. I know people sometimes the players we might come off as we don't listen to people that's never played, but that's not true. Speaking for myself, there are people that study the game that didn't have to play the game. Jeff Van Gundy didn't play the game, but he studied the game. And so when you got guys like that, I believe in giving them an opportunity. And they might not have played in the NBA, but if I've watched Danny Hurley interact with Connecticut, with the players on the team, you could tell they love him, and he loves them, not just as a coach, but as men. And I think he would bring that same attitude to the Los Angeles Lakers. And sometimes, a change is necessary, and I think that would be a positive change.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Are you surprised that it wasn't Reddit? I mean, I guess he still could because they hadn't done anything.
Yeah, it's still not too late for JJ Redick, but I'm not surprised. I would rather give Bobby Hurley. Well, Dan, I keep saying Bobby, you the man, so I got to give you your props. I would rather have Danny Hurley because he has the coaching experience. JJ Redick's never coached anywhere, not even high school level. So I want the guy that's still in the fire right now, that's bought back-to-back championships to an organization, the Connecticut Huskies, and I would give him this opportunity. I'm not the GM, but I think Rob Pelinka and them, I'm sure they're doing their due diligence, and it sounds like they're ready to almost break the bank for this man, and I think he deserves it, and I think he would do well in the NBA.
Yeah. Hey, let's get to this series, man. Game 1 tonight in Boston. I think the Celtics are favored to win this series. Tell me let's do it like this. Tell me what Boston needs to do to win the series. What does Dallas need to do to win the series?
Well, Boston just needs to keep playing consistently with the 6 guys, basically. They're starting 5 and Al Horford. I don't want, I don't want them to get wore out, though. So I'll say that Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard have to step up a little more than they have in the past. They struggled in the last series against Indiana, and they struggled the series before that. So they're going to have to get bench production. If they don't get bench production, then now that you got guys going to have to play extra minutes, talking about your starters. And I don't think that's a good thing when you're dealing with a Luka Doncic and a Kyrie Irving. but it might be something that helps. I think having Porzingis back helps a lot, because if you don't have Porzingis, then you got to put Al Horford in the starting lineup. So with Porzingis being back, you can put Horford back to his original role, now back to the sixth man, and then you have Peyton Pritchard, seventh man, and Sam Hauser. And they also have Luke Cornett. So remember that name, people, because Luke's gonna have to play in this series, I promise you. And then on the Dallas side, the role players are gonna have to continue to play well, like they did against Minnesota. Ricky, people might think I'm crazy, okay? Because people always talk about the stars. But in my mind, if you really want me to be honest, the MVP of that last series was Derek Lively.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because people that understand the game, that pick and roll that they were running with Anthony Edwards, he was not able to get to the basket when Derek Lively was playing and defending the pick and roll. So it made Anthony either pull up and shoot the jump shots, or made him just more of a distributor, a ball distributor. Same with Karl Anthony Towns.
I remember how important that can be. Going back a few years ago, Thompson with the Cavaliers, when they came back on the
Tristan Thompson.
He did a great job staying in front of Steph, I believe, on that pick and roll. When you got a center that can do that, why is it so important to have a big guy who can do that?
Because if you don't, then you're getting exposed. Like, just look at one play, okay? Dallas against Minnesota. Luka against Rudy Gobert. Do you remember that? Okay. Yeah. He had Gobert on skates.
Yeah.
So when you got a guy that can move his feet and that's also long in the process, man, that changes everything. I want you to think about Game 4 that Minnesota won, because they only won Game 4. And Game 4, Lively was not playing. And if you remember correctly, they scored 46 points that night, Minnesota, in the paint. Yeah. Karl Anthony Towns was driving to the basket. Anthony Edwards drove to the basket repeatedly. And those things happened because there was no Derek Lively. Derek Lively comes back in Game 5. What happens? Anthony Edwards starts shooting the jumper or making the pass, started throwing the ball to Nazi Reed to shoot the three, but he was not as effective, Anthony Edwards. And then Karl Anthony Towns basically pulled a no-show in the last game, and I could prove it, a big play. They had a three-point shot in the corner by the team's bench. Karl Anthony Towns shot a three. Who blocked it? Derek Lively.
Yeah.
Plays like that affect games, and they only talk about the stars, but the role players are so important. And Derek Lively proved it.
No, go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm just saying how important those guys are.
To your point, at one point this year, Gafford had a stretch where
32 baskets in a 32 for 32.
Yeah, and Lively went through a stretch in the playoffs where he made 18 in a row. So these guys know exactly what they're supposed to do out there.
You know what's crazy, Ricky? They have 54 lobs in the playoff, 54 lob dunks with Derrick Jones, P.J. Washington, and Gafford. You know the next highest team is 9 dunks, the Denver Nuggets.
Wow.
9 dunks on fast break alley-oops, and they have 54. So you better believe the first thing that Mr. Mazzulla, Joe Mazzulla, told the Boston Celtics is to be ready when Dallas rebounds that basketball, is to sprint down that floor and get back on defense. And for me, I think that's going to be the difference in the series, because I think Boston has the guys that are capable. And Ricky, they have players that are very interchangeable. With Jaylen Brown, you could put Jaylen Brown on Luka. You could put Jaylen Brown on Kyrie. You could put Drew Holiday on Luka or Kyrie. You could put Derek White on Luka or Kyrie. If you had to, you could put Jason Tatum on Luka or Kyrie. And in my mind, that's going to be the difference in the series. That's why I'm picking the Boston Celtics in 6. I just think they're more things they can do. They're interchangeable, and I think that's going to end up beating the Dallas Mavericks in a really good series in 6 games, though.
But how does Dallas win the state, D?
Oh boy, Dallas wins by the role players just continue to play like they've been playing, attacking the basket. Offensive rebounds. Boston's going to have to keep Derek Lively off that offensive rebound, and they're also going to have to keep Gafford off the offensive rebound. If they can't keep Dallas off the offensive rebound and Dallas starts looking comfortable like they looked against Minnesota, Ricky, you could tell that series was over just watching. They just looked like the better team. Dallas was getting the better shots, the in-rhythm shots. Minnesota was not getting easy shots. And so if you see Dallas getting easy shots and Luka driving in there anytime he wants to, backing guys in, and then the role players are hitting those three-pointers when he swings it out to the corner, guys like P.J. Washington, that's how Dallas has to win. So it's going to come down to who shoots the ball the best, I believe.
D, I may have asked you this before, but do you see any of Isaiah Thomas and Irvin in terms of his ball handling, and are there any similarities?
Yes, a lot of similarities, but I'm not with all that. Kyrie the most special. He's got all the skills that we've ever seen and all that nonsense. You watched a lot of basketball. You had guys like Nate Archibald, guys that can handle the ball really well. They didn't do all the fancy stuff like they do today, but they were capable. Isaiah Thomas did all that Harlem Globetrotter stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was.
You know, this people forget really quick. You know how it is today. It's what they remember these guys, what they're doing right now. And I can name you another guy. You mentioned Kyrie. Who's his godfather? Rod Strickland.
Yeah.
So there are guys that could do it like Kyrie. He is an excellent ball handler. But I'm not going to say he's the greatest all time because I think all those guys are Zed, Tiny Archibald. There's been several guys that could really handle the rock. Jason White Chocolate Williams. There's been numerous guys. But I definitely put Kyrie up there near the top of the list, but I'm not going to say one guy can handle the ball better than the others.
Yeah, I know, D. That's crazy to even. I mean, he's one of the best for sure. But I don't know how you judge that. Hell, Curly Neal would be.
Where did they even get that from? The greatest skill set we've ever seen. And I told Dale Ellis today. I wrote on Dale Ellis, and about Steph being the greatest shooter we've ever seen and all that stuff. I told Dale Ellis is a great shooter, and you know that very well. I wrote him less than an hour ago. And I got to get him his credit
on the show, man.
Hey, Ricky, but he's not the only one I just talked to. I just talked to Ricky Pierce 30 minutes ago.
Absolutely, man. Ricky would back you down. But D, I mean, that is so doggone true about those things. Like the best two-way player. Hell, isn't everybody a two-way player?
Well, not if you don't defend. And Ricky, I'm glad you said that because I hear a lot of people saying they would take Luka and Kyrie over Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. For me, I disagree. I want Tatum and Brown. And the reason I want them is because they can do it on both ends. And that's what Ricky Pierce and I just got through talking about right before the show. Yeah. And we both agreed. They can do more things than Luka and Kyrie can. We know Luka is a scoring machine. He's a knockdown scoring machine. We know Kyrie can score, but they're not great defenders.
Right.
And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to bring it defensively. They're going to bring it offensively. So I would rather have those two guys. And we know both of them are taller than Kyrie, and they do a lot of things that Kyrie doesn't do. They rebound the ball. So I would want them, and that's not slighting Kyrie and Luka.
Right.
It's just saying that both guys, they bring a lot of versatility to the game. And today the game is about versatility.
And you know who else Boston has? This guy just makes winning plays is Drew Holiday. I mean, and he will be key in this series as well.
That man is going to be on Kyrie, man. Come on, Kyrie's got his hands full. And then if you want to switch it up and put Derrick White on him as well.
Yeah.
But both of them were all defensive players this year, whether people know it or not. They both made all defensive team. And I think it was well earned. And Kyrie's not going to have a walk in the park with all the jab steps and looking over the floor and taking his time to do what he wants to do and getting to his spots. It's not going to be that easy on Drew Holiday, and it's not going to be that easy on Derrick White as well. And that's one of the main reasons I'm picking Boston to win this series. I don't think Kyrie's going to have an MVP type series.
Hey, Dave, before we get out of here, I want to, and I like Boston in this series too. I think they have just the roster overall is just a little better than Dallas, and Dallas has certainly shown they are capable. But I'm sure Boston is determined after the last time they were there. I love Jason Kidd, so it's kind of hard not to.
So do I.
Yeah, but just calling it as who you think's the better team, I think it's Boston. But then before I get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on all the controversy going on in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark, and I mean, just your thoughts.
You know I'm gonna be honest about it. I'm not one of those guys. If I hurt somebody's feelings, it's not intended. But I understand them trying to make it Caitlin the face of the league. I can understand that. She's bringing in the revenue. But on the other side, Ricky, that situation with Shinady, I believe it's pronounced, Shinady Carter.
Yeah.
As we all remember the hip check to knock Caitlin down. Caitlin kind of flopped a little bit and over-exaggerated the hit. But there were also some plays in that game that led up to that situation. The young lady Caitlin had elbowed her, and people were like, I didn't see that. And I tell them that's not my fault if you don't go back and do your due diligence and check it out.
Mabry doubled.
Yeah, it led to this situation. There were situations before that. It was an elbow from Caitlin, and Caitlin also gave her a two-handed shove in the back that was clear as day, right under the basket. And it's like people didn't want to focus on that. So, see, right, even back there, Caitlin's behind her, and now she's moving out the way. But later on in the play, and later on, there were some situations that happened that involved Caitlin. So I didn't like the cheap play by Carter with the hip check, but I'm not going to also absolve Caitlin from some of the stuff she's done. I want to see the league continue to grow, and I think that she's going to continue to be she's going to only get better from these situations. But I'm not the guy that's ready to make this the Caitlin Clark league. As you look at it right now, the best player in the league is clearly A'ja Wilson. But this is what I will say, Ricky, before we get off the air. I hope that we can get away from this black and white thing. The reason, if you remember, I loved Caitlin. I was one of her biggest fans at Iowa. And it had nothing to do with her color. It had everything to do with she led the country in scoring, and she led the country in assists. And I kept up with her all 4 years of her career. And I just want her, I don't mind her getting the notoriety because she's bringing it to the league and she's giving these other ladies the opportunity to shine and get their endorsement deals. So I hope they can figure that out. I don't think anybody's picking on her necessarily just because she's white. If you look at it, Lisa Leslie went through it. All these ladies have went through it. Diana Taurasi's went through it. Candace Parker went through it. So it's just something.
Even in the NBA, I mean, if you're a top player, you're going to have to go prove yourself, guys. I remember when Lonzo Ball entered the league after his dad was talking all that stuff.
They went at him.
Guys went right at him. So
people don't. Ricky, nobody wants to let a girl come in and just take over the league. And how come nobody – this is why I say they shouldn't make it a racial thing. You had Diana Taurasi talking about it, saying that she was going to have to put on her big girl pants because she's not playing with 18-year-olds anymore. So if she can say it, why is it a problem when an African-American says it? Yeah. So I'm hoping we can just put all that apart to the side and just start, letting her be graded on her basketball merits. But not just her. That's Angel Reese, Cameron Brink, the entire group of ladies. Just come out here and let them play basketball and don't worry about the color on the faces. Worry about the uniforms, the name on the uniform, and let's continue to grow the WNBA.
Hey, that's a good place to end, man. Let's go get ready for this game. We'll be back next week and same time, maybe even sooner as the series goes. We'll keep a good eye out for that. But for my great friend Derrick Gervin, I'm Rick Hampton. See you next time.
Hey, Ricky, have a great night tonight, my man. Enjoy the concert. Yes, sir.
Absolutely, brother. Take
All
care.
right, stay safe.
Love you,
Take
brother.
care. Have a good night.